Welcome to the House Doctor. Today I'm going to show you how to rebuild your water softener and make it like brand new. We're only going to need a few things to rebed our water softener. I'll show you what they are. We're going to need a bag of gravel, a bag of resin, and while it's not completely mandatory, a water softener funnel is very helpful for this process. Let's get started. The gravel goes in the bottom of our mineral tank, and even though this bag of garnet is pretty clean, I'm just going to rinse it off a little bit just to make sure they didn't miss anything when they cleaned it. You can see that water's a little bit dirty. Good thing I decided to rinse this off. Now that I have the gravel all rinsed off, took a couple of times, so maybe you want to take that extra step. This is just another benefit of doing things yourself. Do you really think if you call a guy for service, he's going to rinse the gravel off 5 or 6 times for you before he puts it in your mineral tank? If you feel confident enough, do it yourself, you'll get a better job. Next thing we need to do is disconnect our mineral tank. We have to put our mineral tank in bypass mode so we can disconnect it and relieve the pressure. On the Culligan and some other models, there's a valve in the back. Just push it to one side and that shuts off the mineral tank from the rest of the house and allows the water to bypass. We still need to relieve the pressure in the tank though, because there's water pressure in here. And to do that on this model, just hold down the regeneration key. Let the motor cycle and it'll let the pressure off of the tank. Now we don't have any pressure on the tank. If you have a different model, some of them have a little key in the back that you have to turn 2 valves. Just check your model and make sure you do what you need to do to put it in bypass mode. Now we can start disconnecting the unit. First thing we want to do is cut the power off. In this one, you just disconnect the power supply, set it off to the side, and now we're going to disconnect this small black hose that comes from the brine tank, which is where you put your salt. You should be able to just unscrew this by hand. Maybe a couple of drops of water will come out and get that hose out of your way. This larger hose here is your discharge hose that connects to your plumbing drain lines. The way this is routed going up, water's going to come out when I disconnect it, so be prepared. I have a little gray wire here connected to the plumbing line. I think this is some kind of flow sensor. I don't really know what it does. I'm just going to take that off. And the last thing is there's 2 screws, one on this side, one on the other side. We have to take those off. We're all disconnected from our plumbing. The next thing we need to do is pull the tank off of the plumbing lines. These mineral tanks are really heavy and they're wobbly because they're so tall and thin. So just be careful, don't let it fall over, but just pull it off of the plumbing lines. Get a little bit of water out of there. And now we're disconnected and ready to rebed our mineral tank. All we have to do is unscrew the top and empty this tank out. You don't need a wrench, or at least you shouldn't need a wrench to disconnect these. They're only hand tight. So let's see how I can make out disconnecting this. Now we just unscrew it. And hang on to your power pack because these don't unplug on this old style unit. Once you disconnect it, there's going to be a long tube that goes all the way to the bottom of the tank that may get stuck inside the head. Just hang on to that and wiggle the head off of it. It's not screwed on. It's just a friction fit. And then we can set our head off to the side. You need to take this tube out. Don't force it. It goes down into gravel, but mine just came right out. And we'll check this out in a little bit, but get that out of the way. Now we need to empty the water out. If you're lucky and you have a floor drain, you can spill it out and let the water out. I don't happen to have that, so I'm going to use a shop vac to get some of the water out of here. Maybe this will help you see it. I put a flashlight behind here. The resin in my tank comes up to right about here. So when I put the shop vac in, I want to try and avoid that for right now, just so I can get the water out. I have most of the water out of the tank, and some of the resin, it's kind of hard to suck that goo out even with a shop vac, so I'm going to take the tank outside and rinse it out with a hose. I have the tank all rinsed out and we're ready to start reassembly. Before you start putting it together, take a good look at your tube that goes into the center of your tank. Make sure it's not cracked. This model, at the very bottom of the tank, there are little tiny grooves. I don't know if you can see that or not on the end of the pipe. Make sure that's rinsed out really well. Some models have a little head that either screws on or slides on to the end of it. Make sure you didn't dump that out and throw it away. You use that during the cycles of the regeneration to flush the water through, so make sure you have that piece. Step one is put this tube back in, and it just sits in the bottom of the tank. This tank has a little bump on the bottom that the pipe goes onto. You need to cap off the top of that tube so as we're filling it, you're not going to get any gravel or the new resin in there. I just have a little plastic cap that I'm going to slide on there. You could use masking tape, whatever you have handy to cover that up. Dixie cup might work, but this hole's kind of small. Now we're going to take our funnel. I'll put a link in the description where you can pick all the stuff up that I used today. It's pretty cheap. I spent an extra 10 bucks to get the resin that was made in the United States instead of some far-off country. But this is going to be really handy to refill this tank. You can get by using a funnel that you use for filling mason jars, tomato canning, that kind of thing, but they're much smaller than this. It's going to be much easier using this. Put our funnel in there, and we put our gravel in first. That should stiffen your tube up somewhat. Just imagine trying to do that without this funnel. I think this funnel costs about $10. It's well worth it. I wouldn't want to try and do this with a tomato can funnel. The next step is put our resin in. This tank requires 3/4 of a cubic foot. You can look it up online. It's based on the size of your tank. Your tank will should have a size on it. If not, you can measure it and it'll tell you what the size is. You don't want to fill it up completely. This one, when it's full, is going to be about halfway full. Okay, I put 3/4 of that 1 cubic foot bag in here. That's what this tank calls for. When you're filling the tank, if you do spill this stuff and you have a cement floor, be careful. It's like walking on marbles. So just be careful. These little tiny beads, really slippery. Now we just need to take our unit and put it back on. And in your head, there's a hole right in the middle that goes onto the tube in the center. And I put Vaseline on the threads and on the seal here just to give me a better seal. And again, you don't need a wrench on this, so we're just going to line that up on that tube and screw it on. I also put a little Vaseline in these two holes here where it slides onto the bypass valve. Push this back into place. Redo all of our connections and then we can turn it back on. When you're putting these two screws in, you want to snug them up evenly. Don't put a lot of pressure on them. They're not sealing anything, they're just holding the unit up against the valve. So just tighten them down evenly and snug them up a little bit. Once you have everything reconnected, you can plug your unit back in and then open up your bypass valve. It's usually recommended to pre-fill these units with water, but so you get a little gurgling and banging when the water comes back on. I could tell this unit's behaving better already. The resin came up much higher in the tank. With the old resin, it came up maybe this high, so it was probably impregnated with iron, not able to do its job properly. This is going to make the water here much better. We're going to have soft water. Things are going to be much better from here. My hair is going to be soft and manageable. I'm going to be loving it next time I take a shower. I hope you found this video helpful. Hope you'll take a minute to like, share, and subscribe. And again, I'll put links in the description below where you can pick up all the materials that I used in today's video, much cheaper than buying it from your local water softener supplier. Thanks for watching.